Hi there, my name is Anna, and today I would like to talk to you about disabled gardening tips, basically tips for disabled gardeners. I myself have a disability. It's a long-term condition. I've had it for years now, and basically it impacts my physical stamina when performing activities, so I'm not able to move around with ease. I generally use a wheelchair for outside my home, and it's just difficult to move around basically with ease. But I really enjoy being outdoors in green spaces. I find, trees and the garden so helpful for my mood and just my mental health. And so basically over the past few years now, I've taken up gardening as a hobby. This really came about because during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was increasingly difficult for me to go further afield to access green spaces. We also happened to move into a flat that had the structure for a garden basically. When we moved in, at first there was no garden really to speak of. It was just a patio with some soil and various weeds grown in the soil. But we had structure in place for a patio garden. And it took us a while, but my parents helped me and my partner basically clear the area. So they removed the weeds and laid down grass, and that was really the beginnings of our gardening journey. But over the past few years, I found gardening so helpful that I've just continued to do it. And so what I want to share with you today is some tips that I've developed to help me as somebody with a disability who can't really walk out with ease into the gardens.
So I just want to say here the tips I have to offer are from the perspective of somebody who has an energy limiting chronic illness, and so the tips that I can offer today might not suit people with different kinds of disabilities. Before we get into the tips, I just wanted to show you the garden, the look of the garden, the structure of the garden. And as you can see here, there's some birds drinking at the fountain, which is really nice to see. But this is the indoor view, and you can see there's bay windows. And what's really helpful from my perspective as somebody with limited mobility is there's a step at the sort of entrance to the garden from the indoors to the outdoors. And it's really helpful because I can sit there and undertake various tasks basically. Yeah, so now we're moving to the outside area, just a little panorama shot of the garden really. And you can see that we have quite a lot of plants in a fairly small space. It's just a small patio garden, but almost all the plants we have are potted plants. And this has been really helpful for me because it's quite difficult for me to plant things in the soil because of my kind of issues with my stamina and so on. So I guess that would be my first tip for disabled gardeners. And the majority of the plants are also in hanging baskets and troughs, and that's really helpful also for the winter period because it allows you to move plants around with ease, and it also maximizes the space. So most of the plants in the garden I grew myself over a 3-year period roughly. Some of the plants are perennial and some are annual, so some are longer lasting and some are shorter lasting, and I overwintered some plants in the flat as well as in the greenhouse. I started most of the plants off in the garden in these plastic cells and then transferred them to these terracotta pots that have drainage holes. And I think having the plants in these terracotta pots has been really useful for me. Yeah, and so I've just been showing you some of the yield from this year. These are bunnytail grass, I believe, and the white plant that I was showing you just now is a cineraria. silver dust. And here we have, I think, a black variety of Sweet William, and these were plants that I started off last year and overwintered in the flat, and they've flowered this year. I think they flowered quite early. And this is the same for this plant, which is an echinacea, I believe you pronounce it, although I may be wrong. And this is a Livingstone daisy, I believe, and it's an extremely vibrant shade of pink and probably one of the most vibrant plants I've seen, and definitely the most vibrant plant I've grown myself. And these are a stonewash denim variety of viola that I planted this year. And this is a pot of lavender vera, which is an evergreen perennial herb. I planted the seeds in spring of last year, but the plant has only started flowering recently. And here are some nasturtiums. And these are bishop's flower. And it's an annual shrub that is quite popular with pollinators. And this is a dahlia, which is a perennial. And I actually planted these last year and they're flowering this year for the second time. And this is a plant called coral bells, which has really nice purple burgundy leaves, and I believe it's native to the United States originally. And I'm really lucky to have a partner that helps me with the more strenuous tasks in the garden. For example, if there's a bigger, heavier pot, my partner helps me with lifting that. My partner also attached the trellis to the fence and hung up the baskets. My partner also mows the lawn. So really I'm only doing bits and bobs around the garden. I'm not doing everything myself, which would really be too much for me given my issues with stamina and so on. But there's certain things in the garden I have done, such as planting the seeds and transplanting the seedlings into pots, and this really gives me a great sense of joy. I always thought gardening was beyond me, but I found that with help is something that I can actually do. Yeah, and one thing that has revolutionized in some sense my gardening, experience as like a disabled person, is this Wilco sprayer, which is like a pressure sprayer with a pump action, and basically undo the lid here and take out this pump initially, and then you fill up the main storage compartment, which has got like a 5-litre capacity, I believe, and then you put it back together and you basically pump the sprayer that way, and you can hear the pressure building inside the sprayer if I do that. And basically it has a sprayer attached to it with a cord, and it enables you to remain in place and reach places that you wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. So you sit in one spot and you can spray a lot of things nearby area. And because I find it difficult to stand up and move around easily, this has just been a godsend for me, because I can water most of the garden just remaining seated in one spot. So I'll just show you now. So if you can see the water shoot there, and you can get quite a lot of things this way. Yeah, and if you really pump up or use the lever to increase the pressure in the spray bottle, and the water level is quite full, you'll be able to reach quite large distances, maybe of even 3 or 4 meters. And this isn't a particularly advanced version of this water sprayer. I think it was only around £10 maybe from Wilco. So I'm sure you could get more advanced options. And because there's a courtyard area immediately adjacent to the property, I'm able to go out into the courtyard in my wheelchair and to take the water sprayer with me in order to water plants from behind the fence. This just allows me to have easier access to some plants in the garden that are kind of further away from the immediate patio area. Okay, and one other thing that's really helped me as a disabled gardener is this neck fan, like the portable neck fan. But because basically I have a degree of heat intolerance, quite difficult to sit in hot environments and particularly move around when it's hot. So if I'm sitting at the window, as I am now, and the sun is baking down, it's quite difficult for me to do things like in the way that I just showed you. But if I use my neck fan, I find that I'm able to sit at the window for considerably longer periods of time. And this was only £3.50 from Temu. But I've since got a slightly more expensive one from Wilko. It's like a better battery life, and I think the airflow is a bit stronger, so I actually recommend the one from Wilko. But yeah, this was really a godsend, and I use this a lot of the time throughout the day, to be honest. And yeah, it just goes around your neck. So that's my other tip. So I really hope you found this video useful, and if you have any of your own tips for gardening with a disability, feel free to post those in the comment section down below. I hope to see you again.